Hello everyone, this is Running on Empty Food Review. Well, hello ladies, gentlemen, and everyone watching. Welcome one and all to this newest edition of the Running on Empty Food Review series. I'm your host, The Report of the Week. I've been utterly devastated, quite frankly, and it took a lot of composure to get here in front of the camera tonight. As I'm sure you could tell, I mean, obviously I'm going with the black suit today, and it's for a reason. I have been, I guess as they say, in a state this whole evening. I've been crying my eyes out continually. I'm sure you've heard the news too. The bad news. The horrible news. McDonald's has brought back the McRib. And on top of that, this is the farewell tour for the McRib. Now, it's not like they've said this 5 times already. And it's not like they've done this again and again and again. And it's not like this is some sort of advertising pitch to try to create a sense of urgency just to get people to rush out and buy something that they might not necessarily buy otherwise. No, they're actually getting rid of it this time, right? Because obviously, forget all the other times that they said they were going to get rid of it and then they never did, right? This has to be it. And I have been utterly devastated because of that. It's going away, they said. The McRib is going away. All right, it's probably, but I guess that's how they want you to feel about that, to be honest. I mean, the McRib reviews for me, it's become like a yearly tradition. The first time I ever had a McRib was back in 2018, believe it or not, and I tried it out in a review, I gave it a shot, and obviously it's one of those items from McDonald's that has a lot of interest to it. It's usually a yearly release. They bring it back pretty much every November or so. And the McRib, it's been around for decades. It's pretty much a perennial release. They just bring it back for a couple weeks and they take it away, and it comes back every single year. And what it is, it's a pork patty that's kind of molded into this rib sort of mold, so there are no bones in it, at least as far as I'm concerned. And like I said, it's that pork patty. On top of the patty is a tangy barbecue sauce. Along with that are some tangy pickles, slivered onions, and then it's on a roll. So it's a pork sandwich, the McRib, very iconic. But like I was saying, every now and then they have these advertising campaigns, and I know they did this in the mid-2000s too, and I'm pretty sure that they've done that before as well. They'll have these sorts of announcements, and they did that this year, and it drummed up a whole lot of hype and discussion and all of that, where they were saying, this is the farewell tour for the McRib. So they were clearly giving the impression that we know we bring it back every single year and it's a limited release and then it obviously comes back the next year. They're giving the impression that this is going to be it. After 2022, it's done. And it might be a huge seller, it might drum up a lot of interest, but it's over. After this, it's never coming back. I don't believe that for a single second. Quite frankly. No, I understand, though. Maybe this will be the time where it does happen. I don't know. We know that in the last year or two, there have been a lot of logistical issues with various companies. I know for a fact, and I'm sure you've seen it too, there are various companies out there that they'll take away items that you like, and you'll think, how could they do that, right? Isn't that a popular item? Don't people like that, etc.? But it happens. You've obviously seen that with Taco Bell. They'll remove some things from the menu that you think, why would they do that? And then sometimes they bring them back, sometimes they don't. Starbucks did that with their almond croissant. That was another good item. They took that away. Everyone was kind of scratching their heads. They were wondering, why would you do that? Everyone likes that. So that's not to say that it's impossible that this isn't the actual farewell tour for the McRib, but I would say that I find it unlikely. I think it's a marketing strategy to try to create a sense of urgency, but in the event that this actually winds up being something different than what you've had in the past, well, I'm getting the word out about it, and as I said, This has become a bit of a yearly tradition where I tried it out in 2018, and then every year subsequently, I've re-reviewed the McRib, and it's just one of those yearly videos that I do just for the fun of it. It's interesting to see how the quality fluctuates, because it certainly has. The first McRib I ever had back in 2018 was really good. It was surprising to me, because I wasn't sure how I was going to like it, and I thought it was really good. Last year's McRib, not enjoyable at all. So we will see. We'll see if the farewell tour leaves me in a sense of disbelief that they're going to take this great item away, or if it's going to make me think, thank gosh, yeah, this thing's never coming back, and I am glad. Opening it up, first I should mention, there is the box, McDonald's logo, and the cucumber slices, McRib. And now opening it up, there it is. The McRib 2022 edition. I should mention that the price for this McRib in and of itself is $5.70. So $5.70 for it, just for the McRib, no meal. And there you can see the pork patty with the barbecue sauce, the bun, as well as the onion and the pickles. And it is a little lopsided. This is just how I got it. You could see it's not totally evenly balanced. I'll rearrange it slightly, but just wanted to show you what it looked like. So now, let's do a little bit of reorganization here. Like that. I think that should be better now. And again, that's what it looks like, the McRib 2022 edition. So, as I mentioned, last year I didn't enjoy it. There were a lot of problems with the one that I had, but let's try it out. Let's see how it is. Let's see how it compares to the one I had a year ago, and go from there. The McRib 2022 edition going in. take a sip of water. Well, to give credit where credit is due, it is slightly better than the one that I had last year, but to be honest, based on what I got, quality is still lacking a bit, unfortunately. And if this is the farewell tour, well, I can't really say that they concluded this all on all that good of a note. That's the truth right there. I think back in comparison to the previous McRibs that I've had over the years. And obviously it's a pretty simple sandwich. There aren't a ton of ingredients here. When I had that first McRib in 2018 and even in 2019, when I really enjoyed them and I gave them outstanding reviews, the thing about them that I really liked was, number one, the pork patty wasn't as gross as I thought it was going to be. Because, it just kind of weirded me out a little bit, and I wasn't sure how it was really going to be. But it was better than I thought. It exceeded those expectations. But what really made it, what really tied it all together was not only how flavorful it happened to be, but all of that tanginess that was in it. It complemented the pork so nicely, and it was an excellent accompaniment. The sauce was thicker. It had this very powerful, very potent tang to it. It just complemented it very nicely, is what I'm trying to say, as did the pickles. They both accentuated the pork, and it was a great blend. The onions were sharp, but like I said, all the ingredients complemented each other quite nicely. The sauce was flavorful, it had consistency, and as I said, it was a thicker sauce. So that's the sandwich that I had even in 2018, 2019, and I really enjoyed it. I gave them an outstanding review. Last year, on the other hand, the problem that I had was that it wasn't that flavorful. It was actually a bit dry, and I think, if my memory serves me correctly, and, just don't hesitate to check out the review that I did a year ago for the most accurate assessment, but purely going based off of memory, I think I had a problem that it was a bit dry, and there wasn't a ton of sauce on it, so that was an issue. This time around, it's not as dry, which is great. Here's the problem, though. They're substituting one problem for another, and that's not good. Main issue here, it's not as flavorful as it used to be. And the biggest problem in this case is the sauce. The McRib, I think one thing that makes it so iconic is that barbecue sauce that goes on it, that tangy barbecue sauce. And sadly, what I noticed with the sauce here, in the one that I got, it seemed much thinner than I remember it being. And just because a sauce is thinner doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be as flavorful. But in this case, not only did it seem like a thinner sauce, but it seemed very runny, very watery, very watered down. And when that happens, it's not as concentrated, it's not as flavorful, and very lacking in that regard. So even though there was some sauce on this, and you could obviously see it when I was showing the McRib to the camera, you could see that it was thoroughly coated in the sauce. But when I bit into it, could I really taste much of that sauce? Sadly, I couldn't. Definitely there, but it was like very, very watered down barbecue sauce, and that's disappointing. Because it's nothing like the one that I had in 2018, and if this really is the farewell tour for the McRib, which again, I am not convinced on one single bit, but if this is, what a note to close things down on, let me tell you. Likewise, oddly enough in this case, the pickles weren't as tangy as I thought they would be either. As a matter of fact, I remember the one thing, and I don't want to sound like a broken record here, that was just so great in those first ones that I had, was how tangy it was, because that, like I said, it complemented the pork so nicely. But in this case, sauce is almost flavorless. It's just watery, it's moisture, with a very, very tiny hint of that barbecue sauce there. But is it thick? Is it flavorful? Is it tangy? No, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is. And oddly enough, in this case, the pickles, first bite I had, I ate the whole pickle. I think you probably saw that. How did it complement the sandwich? It really didn't. It was just there. And that's utterly bizarre because most of the time the pickles are consistent, right? You can't really mess up a pickle, but somehow in this case, it's just lacking in terms of flavor. The onions are still there. They're sharp as ever. But when it's missing those tangy notes that it used to have, that definitely severely detracts from the eating experience. Likewise, when it comes down to the McRib itself, quality-wise, the pork at least seems a bit more tender compared to how it was a year ago, so that's good. That's good. Definitely more moisture to it, and I really don't have much of an issue with the pork itself. Consistency-wise, like I said, it seemed pretty tender, pretty flavorful. So at least as far as the patty itself goes, that's not really a big problem, and the onions are fine as well. But when it comes down to the sauce and the pickles and those tangy notes that I think really made the sandwich the favorite that it is, when those are just not there or they're severely lacking, that's a problem, and that is a disappointment. So, the 2022 McRib improved in some ways, but it did go downhill in some other ways. Now, mind you, the consistency of this can vary from one location to the next, so if this is something of interest to you, hey, try it, get it while the getting is good. Who knows if it'll be back next year or not? Probably will, but McDonald's is just acting and saying that it won't be, so maybe go out, try it out, see how it is for you. And out of curiosity, if you've already had the McRib in 2022, what were your observations? Did you notice that the sauce was lacking as well? Or was yours a good McRib as intended? So I'm curious as to your opinion. Feel free to leave one in the comments. But yeah, they improved in some ways, but they dropped the ball in others, unfortunately. Again, $5.70 for the sandwich itself. Out of 10, I'm going to have to give the McRib this time around. Like I said, there's some improvement, but it's a big issue when it comes down to the lacking nature of the sauce and those pickles, and it's missing that signature tanginess. Therefore, out of 10, I'm going to have to give the 2022 McRib a 5.6 out of 10. That's all that I have for you, and until next time, I'm your host, the Report of the Week.